From beautiful Phoenix, Arizona, it is the Neglected News Report. I'm your co-host, Scott Mitchell, along with my brother, Kevin.
Good day, mates.
And, we always talk about the weather here. That's because lately we've been having weather. And that's not something, we have a lot of usually. It's nice to be like all other areas of the world and have weather for a change with us.
We're supposed to be having another hurricane coming up from the Pacific.
Yeah, but I haven't seen. I was just checking NOAA, and it says there's a slight chance of rain tomorrow and tomorrow night, and then 30% chance on Tuesday and Tuesday night. But other than that, there's nothing.
Well, that storm last week started out real slow, but it ended with a bang. I don't know if any of you folks out there saw any pictures that came out of Phoenix from last week, but there was fully submerged vehicles, stranded. Mm-hmm. It was amazing. And
we live in an area that doesn't get it too badly because we've got good storm sewers. But my backyard I had water up to my patio, and it still had standing water in it 2 days after the last rain. And it's right now, the ground is so saturated, I still can't mow my lawn in the backyard, and it is literally a jungle. A bunch of grass I removed just 2 weeks ago is back. I got it down right to ground level, it's back again.
Even though that we're in a desert, when we do get a lot of precipitation during the summer, it takes on a real tropical atmosphere here. It gets really hot and really humid, and
Yep.
Things start growing more. Mosquitoes start coming out of the woodwork, and
yeah, it's nasty. Anyway, we are going to discuss something that, if you listen to the people who don't want you to really know what's going on, they'll say that this went away about 25 years ago with the fall of the Berlin Wall. We're talking about, and the dissolution of the Soviet Union. We're going to talk about communism today, because you know what? It's not gone. These people like Vladimir Putin that say, "Oh, we good Russians now." No, they're not good Russians. They're still communists at heart, and he wants to bring back the Soviet Union.
Well, always remember that communism. I don't care what Karl Marx said. I don't care what Engels said. I don't care what Gorbachev. I don't care what Lenin. I don't care what Stalin. I don't care what Obama says. Communism is not an economic model. It is a system of control.
And that's all it is, because it's like, it goes back to what Andrew Wilkow always says. Socialism is for the people, not the socialist. It's the same thing with communism.
That's right, and you're starting to see it unfolding right now in this country. When you hear these people talk about the 1%, they're correct. But these are liberals talking about the 1%, but they really believe that it's these super rich moguls, which it is. However,
you have to add the word of Republican. They always throw in there.
Oh well, it's not. It's hardly. I mean, the Zuckerbergs of the world, the Bill Gateses of the world, the true rich people.
The guy who owns Progressive Insurance.
They're all rich Democrats. But the bottom line is, look, it's worse than what they think it is. They think that somehow, that we're just getting the short end of the stick. No, it's worse than that. It's planned.
And you know what?
One day you're going to wake up and there's not going to be any middle class. You're going to have the very, very extremely wealthy in the billions, and the rest of us.
You know what? I was watching Megyn Kelly's interview with Ward Churchill.
Ugh.
I believe it was yesterday. I actually agree with him on something. I actually did. He was talking about America is not. This is not a capitalist society. He says it's a corporatist society.
Oh, it is.
And he's totally right.
Yeah, it's an oligarchy.
Anyway, to start with, I'm going to give you guys a quick history lesson on the Russian Revolution, because that's where it all started in 1917. Basically, you had it started in February of 1917. You had women who would stand on line for even a portion of a loaf of bread to feed their families for hours and hours, sometimes all day long. And they got sick of it. And they finally had enough of it, and they started protesting out in the streets. Then the men who were factory workers started to join them. Simultaneously, at the same time as this, there's an island. In Petrograd, which is now St. Petersburg. Let's just call it St. Petersburg. It's easier. It rolls off the tongue easier. 30 miles off the coast of St. Petersburg is an island, and there's a naval base there called Kronstadt. Kronstadt is they've got a number of fortifications all around the island, and the sailors there were getting tired of the way they were being treated by their superiors, and they staged a revolt. And what they did was they took all the officers, the ones that they hated the most, that treated them the worst, tried them, and executed them, including an admiral. And then they decided to set up a Soviet. A Soviet, basically, the best way to visualize it in our culture, it's basically a city-state or a republic. You know?
The word Soviet, translated, actually means to advise.
Right, which
doesn't mean
they called them committees also. They were defined as committees too. But it's basically like a little republic, a little city-state. Anyway, while this was going on in Kronstadt, you had the factory workers and the women revolting, and Tsar Nicholas was fighting World War I against the Germans on the German front, and he didn't think anything of it till it really started to get out of control. Then he decided to go back after it started to get out of control. He couldn't even get into the city. The royal train couldn't even get into the city because of everything that was happening. They finally got there, and he was left with no choice but to abdicate. He abdicated. They set up a provisional government, which failed. Once that happened, then Vladimir Lenin was coming to town because all political exiles were forgiven. Because they decided they wanted to with this provisional government. The other thing that has to be said is the provisional government wanted to continue the war. The sailors at Kronstadt didn't want to. Neither did the workers and the women and all that. Everyone else, no one wanted to do it except for the provisional government. So you had Tsar Nicholas had abdicated, and all political exiles were welcomed back. Lenin came back.
He was in exile in London, I believe, right?
No, actually it was Switzerland.
Switzerland?
Yeah. And there are rumors that I've heard. One side says they've been substantiated, another side says they haven't been, that say that he was funded by the Germans. Because if he got in there, he didn't want the war, he would have pulled Russia out, it would have made it easier for the Russians or the Germans to win World War I.
The Bolshevik Revolution was funded by Western bankers. And who was the main banker in Germany?
The Rothschild.
Yeah. House of Rothschild.
Anyway, he came into town. He started saying things that the people liked. They decided to have open elections. They had the open elections, and the Bolsheviks, Lenin's party, only got 1/4 of the vote.
And which is ironic, sorry to interrupt you, because Bolshevik means majority.
Yeah.
And Menshevik, who was their counter,
is minority.
Means minority, when in fact they had the majority. But anyway,
so they didn't. They
were the whites and the reds.
They found that they were not going to be able to form a government. So what they did, with the help of the sailors from Kronstadt, is they threw everyone else out but their people and locked the doors and seized power. So much for openness and democracy.
But that's communism.
Exactly. That's why I'm trying to tell them.
It's not about the people. Never has been.
Then they set about forming the precursor to the KGB, which was called the Checkers. And what they did was anyone who... Now, this is going to hit home with some people who are in the know right now with what's going on with us. Anyone that spoke ill of the government or had leanings away from what the government believed was rounded up and quite often executed on the spot. Sound familiar? We're not executing people yet, but there's a lot of sentiment going on right now. Obama wants, they're trying to pass laws that anyone who criticizes the government is going to be thrown in jail.
Well, what did Bernardine Dorn and Bill Ayers, well, he talked about killing 30 million, 25, 30 million, at the beginning of the revolution. He had no problem with it. They have no problem with it. How can you have a problem with killing people when people are just part of the collective? A person has no individuality. There is no such thing as really a person in the communist world. So therefore, they have no. It's
all about the collective.
It's the Borg, from Star Trek. Sorry,
exactly.
It just is. And that's what, and that episode of Star Trek, by the way, was really a metaphor for communism.
Yeah, they weren't stupid, those writers. They knew exactly what they're doing. So then, anyway, that basically established Lenin and the Bolsheviks as the government. Anyway, this went on for a few years until 1921. And then finally, the sailors at Kronstadt realized the error of their ways. They realized, what did we do? We didn't back the right horse. So they and a lot of other factions got together after the Russians had started the Red Army, or the Bolsheviks started the Red Army. They created the White Army, and then that lasted until about 1928. The Russian Civil War. This is all in a nutshell, by the way, folks. And finally, there was the Red Army advanced on Kronstadt, and they were repelled. The second time, they did it at night, and they took it all over. They beat them. They defeated the sailors of Kronstadt, and these were very good fighters. These were like the shock troops, So then that left the leader of the sailors of Kronstadt leaving for Finland 8 miles away in a car across. They fought on the ice between St. Petersburg and Kronstadt, which is like 30 miles. And then the survivors of Kronstadt, they just hightailed it out of there and got out as quick as they could across the ice to the relative safety of Finland. And that ended it right there. And after that, 70 years of communist rule. Something like how many countries? I think they said something like 135 million people were under communist rule. I think it's more than that.
Oh, I think you're talking 135 million people murdered.
They were talking about how many people were under communist rule.
Very close to. By the way, the numbers when you add up what Stalin did, what Mao did, what Pol Pot did, it's amazing. The numbers are incredible.
No, I think they said 35 countries were under communist rule. Eventually.
I think Mao was responsible for the slaughter of 80 million in his own country.
Yeah. So that, in a nutshell, that's what it is. Now, knowing that, Kevin's going to pick it up here and do what he's going to do. I just want to give a little bit of history on it.
Okay, I want to talk because there's a lot of things that are being talked about today that you don't really realize they're being presented as something when really it's something else. And the Ray Rice situation has a lot to do with that, and I'll get to that. You'll understand it here in a minute. What does Ray Rice have to do with communism?
And also, didn't you say Adrian Peterson that came up today?
Well, yeah, but it's all having to do with undermining our institutions. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm going to get to. But this is a very interesting. I don't know which one to do first, but I think this little article here really tells you what communism is and how it intertwines with the radical feminist agenda. It says this column is absolutely a must-read. We should be sick to our souls over this. And it was written by the moniker of somebody named Macarena. But, yeah. A clever and competent reader sent us this column written by Mallory Millett, sister of Kate Millett. By the way, the Millett sisters were big-time radical feminists from the 1960s and 70s, who wrote Sexual Politics in 1970. Kate was dubbed the mousy tongue of women's liberation by Time magazine, as if that's a compliment. Camille Paglia, who Daisy and I have total girl crushes on, despite disagreeing with her about a lot of things, described Kate Millett as follows. Camille Paglia was an ex-radical feminist turned not so radical anymore. She's kind of seen the evil. She's a lesbian, and she was a hardcore lesbian feminist from the 70s. She's still a lesbian, however, she's really turned her opinions around about basically men, and
a lot of things, though.
Yeah. Okay. Camille Paglia, who Daisy and I have girl crushes on despite disagreeing with her about a lot of things, described Kate Millett as follows. Her condescending, destructive, bitterly anti-male method of approaching art was adopted as dogma by the Women's Studies program as they sprang up everywhere in the 1970s and became insular fiefdoms intolerant of dissent. She called her book atrocious. Regardless, Sexual Politics set off the second wave of feminism. Its publisher, Doubleday, called it one of the 10 most important books it had published in its 100-year history. Of course, calling it important doesn't mean it wasn't destructive, I guess. But according to Mallory, Kate's sister, it did unspeakable damage to America. Mallory's column paints a truly frightening picture about what Kate Millett's brand of feminine does to modern society, and it affirms everything we've been concerned about with respect to today's liberal feminists. You have to read the whole thing, but here are some excerpts that really stood out to me. It was 1969. Kate invited me to join her for a gathering at the home of her friend Lila Karp. They called the assemblage a consciousness-raising group, a typical communist exercise, something practiced in Maoist China. We gathered at a large table as a chairperson opened the meeting with a back-and-forth recitation like a litany, a type of prayer done in Catholic Church. See, this is, let me interrupt right here. Don't think that some people don't view this as a religion in and of itself, because it is. We humans have a part, they call it the God particle, in our God part of the brain that really needs religion. And so when someone claims to be an atheist, typically they really aren't. They cling on to something else as in place of typical Christianity or Hindu or whatever.
To make a fine point on it, Blaise Pascal, the mathematician, philosopher, said that everyone is born with a God-shaped hole in their heart.
So they gathered at this table and did a prayer that was similarly done, in the Catholic Church. But now it was Marxism, the church of the left, mimicking religious practice. So they start out by saying this. This chairperson starts out by saying, "Why are we here today?" she asked. "To make revolution," they answered. And these are women, these are feminists, okay? "What kind of revolution?" she replied. "The cultural revolution," they chanted. "And how do we make cultural revolution?" she demanded. "By destroying the American family," they answered. "How do we destroy the American family?" she came back. "By destroying the American patriarch," they cried exuberantly. "And how do we destroy the American patriarch?" she replied. "By taking away his power." "How do we do that?" "By destroying monogamy," they shouted. How can we destroy monogamy? Their answer left me dumbstruck, breathless, disbelieving my ears. Was I on planet Earth? Who were these people? They answered, "By promoting promiscuity, eroticism, prostitution, and homosexuality," they resounded. Mallory writes that it was by establishing the National Organization of Women that they would achieve their goals. They planned to invade every American institution, the media, the education system, universities, high schools, kindergarten through 12 schools, school boards, etc. Then the judiciary, the legislatures, the executive branches, and even the library system. And unfortunately, they've largely succeeded. Mallory dismissed her sister's rantings early on, but Kate Millett enjoyed huge acclaim for her feminist work. As Mallory writes, her books captivated the academic classes, and soon women's studies courses were installed in colleges in a steady wave across the nation, with Kate Millett books as required reading. The result? By the time the women's studies professors finish with your daughter, she will be a shell of the innocent girl you knew, who's soon convinced that although she should be flopping down with every boy she fancies, she should not by any means get pregnant. And so as a practitioner of promiscuity, she becomes a wizard of prevention techniques and especially abortion. The goal of women's liberation is to wear each female down to losing all empathy for boys, men, or babies. The tenderest aspects of her soul are roughened into a rock pile of cynicism where she will think nothing of murdering her baby in the warm protective nest of her little girl womb. And it goes on. No empathy for either boy or baby. She has a life to live and no one is to get in her way. And if the boy or man doesn't get it, then no sex for him. Making love becomes having sex. And it says, in quotes, "I'm not having sex with any jerk who doesn't believe I can kill his son or daughter at my whim. He has no say in it because it's my body." Strange logic is, who has ever heard of a body with 2 heads, 2 hearts, 4 arms, and 4 feet? There's no end to the absurdities your young girl will be convinced to swallow. I plan to leap from guy to guy as much as I please, and no one can stop me because I'm liberated. In other words, these people will turn your daughter into a slut with my sister's books as instruction manuals. Slut is a good word. Be proud of it. She'll be telling you, I'm probably never getting married. If I do it will be after I've established a career, which nowadays often means never. I'll keep my own name, and I don't really want kids. They're such a bother and only get in the way. They'll tell her, don't let any guy degrade you by allowing him to open doors for you. To be called a lady is an insult. Chivalry is a means of ownership. Mallory knows women who, now in their 50s and 60s, mourn the loss of the children they never allowed themselves to have, and those that they willfully murdered because they were exercising their own bodily autonomy. Mallory has been told that her sister's books destroyed women's lives, and it's no surprise, given that Mallory heard firsthand her sister and her sister's cohorts plotting to tear American society apart, along with the family and the patriarchal slave master, the American husband. Mallory speaks out about her sister now because she says, the girls have been up to something for years, and it's really not good. It's evil. We should be sick to our souls over it. I know I am. And so, mass destruction, the inevitable outcome of all socialistic/communistic experiments, leaves behind in its signature trail of wreckage. So much grace, femininity, and beauty lost. So many ruined lives. So, so when you see feminism, they don't care about women. It's not about feminism. Because if it were, then they'd be in an uproar over things like Ted Kennedy, letting a woman, Mary Jo Kopechne, die in his vehicle at Chappaquiddick. Or they would be outraged over the treatment of Bill Clinton and all of his dalliances over the years. They'd be outraged over it, but they're not, because those people have the same political ideologies as they do. It's not about sex. It's about ideology. It's called leftism. It's called liberalism. It's called communism. And furthermore, when's the last time you saw anybody from the National Organization of Women cry any tears for the slaughter of women in the Middle East, the slaughter, the sexual mutilation, the rape, just the
acid attacks.
Hangings in soccer stadiums for showing their ankles, honor killings. Where are they?
As a matter of fact, I was watching Megyn Kelly yesterday, and she had that woman was Somali or Sudanese woman, whose husband, I think, was the pastor, the one that was held over there
in Iran.
No.
That's a different. Okay, I got it. That's
the one that was pregnant.
Yeah,
she was forced.
Yeah. You're right. It wasn't.
She was forced to have her baby while chained to the floor.
Yes.
They wouldn't let her go.
And another reason why you won't see anybody from the National Organization of Women coming to her rescue is because she was a Christian.
Right. And, I'm a little related to this, but a little tamer example. They're very insidious on how they accomplish their goals, too, quite often. A lot of it's overt. Some of it's kind of covert. Media. I'm going to bring up one example, and I've been meaning to mention this. I saw the commercial again this morning. Commercials. There's this commercial for Toyota. Shows a woman in the garage. Brand new Toyota, red Toyota car, sitting there. It's raining. It's pouring outside. All of a sudden, her husband comes running in with 2 bags of groceries that are falling apart because they're soaking wet. She goes, I got the groceries, honey. Why didn't you drive the car? Because I just washed it, silly. And she goes, you forgot the milk. Be right back. So he runs out in the rain again. This is the same guy. I've seen him in a number of commercials. They always have the same guy doing these roles. I've seen him in a commercial for Home Depot.
Well, explain what they're doing, though.
Well, what they're doing is they're showing how stupid the guy is.
They've been doing that for decades now. And my ex-wife and I used to get in arguments 25 years ago when I'd tell her, I'd say, look, watch these commercials. Every time someone's got the winning product, there's 2 products. There's one that's a good product, and there's one that's the bad product. The person who always had the good product was a woman. The one who had the bad product was a man. She's smart. He's stupid. And I would bring that up to her, and she'd say, oh, you're overreading. No, I'm not.
What about that AT&T commercial we've talked about before?
That's disgusting. That's a eunuch.
You got the 5 people that work for some kind of firm or whatever. 4 of them are women, 1's a guy, and they're trying to get the best deal they can on cell phones. And basically, the head woman in the group says, great, let's close. And they all then just fold their arms as if there's some special...
In a power stance.
In a power stance. And the fumbling man who doesn't know anything, who's stupid, kind of fumbles before he crosses his arms, and then he shakes his head as if he's just going along.
Sort of effeminate looking.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Well, no, but it sends a message.
I know, that's the message.
It's false, but it's nonetheless. I mean, look at some of the stuff you see these days. These 5 foot tall women beating up 230-pound burly men. You know, I mean, with their kung fu moves. Really? Come on.
And you know what? And I hear this a lot nowadays with women commenting while I'm there, right within hearing distance, saying how they're not actually coming out and saying how stupid men are, but that's the implication of it. And the thing about it is it's not so much we're not stupid, we're simple. There's a big difference.
And if you were to turn the tables, chances are, if a group of men were to talk like that with one another in front of a woman, that would be sexual harassment.
Yeah,
I mean, it would be. You know, the deck is stacked right now, and there's a reason for it, and I'm going to get to that reason. What communism has to do, and don't think that there's not a force in this country right now that's trying to nudge us in that direction. Okay, nudge is funny. You know who uses that word?
Cass
Sunstein.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, we're being nudged in that direction, and the reason why is, in order for communism to take root, there's a few things that have to happen, and we touched on that just now in this column that I read. First of all, the family has to be destroyed. It has to be, because when there's a family, there's strength. And basically what you have to have is millions of little islands of people, individuals alone. Because when you're alone, you don't have the strength to overcome somebody who's trying to basically take over your lives and subjugate you. Another thing is, you have to weaken the male. Mm-hmm. Have to. And thereby by weakening the male, you leave basically a normal marriage is a man and a woman married. You know, if you want to use biblical terms, basically the man's the head of the house. You don't even have to believe that. However, typically the man is considered, the patriarch's considered strong and the prime decision maker. But when you weaken the man, well, then everything breaks down. And then who the female then starts becoming more inclined to be her husband, have her as her husband, is the state.
Because, yes, ladies, I'm going to say it, because deep down inside you have a need to have someone provide for you, protect you, and
security care for you. That's why you voted for Obama, because he was promising you everything from health care to the Obama phone lady. He's going to give me a phone. He's going to pay my mortgage. He's going to do this.
And by the same token, men need to fix things. They're protectors. They need to fix things, and whenever there's a problem, they need to fix it.
And men treasure their liberty and independence.
Yeah, exactly.
So I have some anecdotal proof of what I'm saying is true. As I've told you before in the past, I was a Russian linguist in the military, and a lot of my instructors were Soviet defectors. They were all Soviet defectors, as a matter of fact. And I learned a lot about Soviet society. How dysfunctional it was, and how brutal it was, how many people saw their loved ones murdered, and so forth. But I was taking an advanced Russian course in Munich in 1986, and it was advanced. It was a one-on-one situation between student and teacher. We would spend 8 hours a day with one another. They would pair us up. They would try to make the best fit with teacher and student. And we would do anything from, sometimes we just sit in a classroom and talk for 8 hours. Most of the time we'd hop on a train and go down to Munich in the middle of the city, go have lunch. You can go have a few beers. We're just so we could get good with our language. We speak nothing but Russian with one another, and you learned a lot about people. But anyway, I was teamed up with this woman. Her name was Ludmila. And Ludmila had left the Soviet Union, had escaped from the Soviet Union and gone to West Berlin, West Germany, some years prior to 1986. And she would make comments all the time about how worthless men were, how they were just drunks, and how they, contributed nothing to society and so forth. And I said, well, Ludmila, if you had everything, all of your self-worth and everything taken from you, all your human dignity, and that's what men, get a lot of dignity out of things that they do, their jobs and so forth. And when you remove that from them, their self-respect, you're dealing with just a rusted out carcass of a human. And that's what Soviet men became. They became alcoholics because there was nothing for them to strive for. And the woman became married to the state. She became let's say the mistress of the state, if you will. So I would tell her that. I'd say, Ludmila, the reason why the men in the Soviet Union suck, as you put it, was because they were emasculated. Their manliness was taken away from them from the state. Men like that don't exist. Well, they do exist in the United States, but
not in great numbers.
But by their own, choice. And I said, furthermore, if that system was so great, what are you doing here? Why are you over here in the West? Because I'll tell you why. Just like a lot of leftists that live here in the United States, I call them theoretical leftists. They like the idea of it, but in action, it really sucks. Communism sucks. But they still hold on to it because it's this religion, this idea, this dream in their head that doesn't exist.
Here's the difference between...
So real quick, Scott. So after a couple days of my haranguing, she put in a request that I get another teacher, which I did, and I had a good time with her instead. But anyway, that was my example of what communism and what the state does to what should be a normal, healthy relationship between a man and a woman.
Speaking about relationships, I heard this said, Kevin will probably remember who said this, but women, they judge their success in life by their relationships. Mm-hmm. Men judge success in life by their job or the things they do, the things they make.
Going back to what
and that's
Scott,
biological, folks. I'm sorry, that's biological.
Going back to what Scott said about men fixing problems, it's the truth, because there was a period in my marriage where my then wife had started this really, a power job. She took on a lot of responsibility, and she'd come home every day and she'd tell me about her problems, and I'd start giving her solutions on what she should do. And the more I would give her solutions, the angrier she got. And so one day she said, "Don't you understand? I don't want you to fix my problems. I want you to listen to me."
I've heard that before.
And I said, "Okay, I'll listen to you. If you want me to give you platitudes, fake platitudes, okay, honey, sweetie, buttercup, fine. I will." Yeah, and that's what she wanted. She didn't want me to help with anything. And that's a man's, if you read the book Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus, that's one of the chapters that deals with that.
Yeah, I've heard women say that too. They said, "Sometimes I just want someone to listen to me, and that's it. Not offer anything in return."
I don't have a problem suffering in silence myself, but,
Well, actually, men quite often will just go out and have some beers with another guy and talk about things.
Yeah, and then the guys will come up with a solution together. Oh, boy. But that's a good, explanation. I mean, a good real life confrontation I had with a Soviet woman, and what that system had done to her already at that point. So,
and here, real quick, I know it's TV, but good example of this whole thing about one of the best examples in popular culture in the last 25 years about a woman not needing a man is the Murphy Brown thing.
Oh, or I've got a better one. What was that fictitious woman when Obama was trying to shove Obamacare down our throat that got through life without the man? What was her name? She was a single woman.
Oh, yeah, on the website.
Julia. Oh, yeah, Julia she didn't need a man. She had the state. That's what they're telling her. I mean, you got to start looking at things closer.
Yes.
Look at your sitcoms. Look at you're getting everything is being
if no one remembers the Murphy Brown thing, basically it was a storyline that went on for like a whole season or so, where she wanted to have a kid, but she didn't want to have a man, so she was looking for someone to basically be a sperm donor. And she had a baby and named him, you ready for this? After her mother. It was a boy. Avery.
Yeah. Do your best to emasculate him at an early age.
There's men called Avery, but come on. Avery is the kind of name you name your boy if you want to get him to get his butt kicked on the playground.
Well, John Wayne's real name was Marion, so,
Well, yeah, but he became tough.
Scott, wasn't our grandfather's name Carol?
Yeah, it was.
So, well, anyway. So I guess this is a good segue, although I want to hit something else here in a minute.
Forgot about that. Oops.
This is a kind of a good segue about the Ray Rice thing that's going on. And how is you cold cocking your wife and knocking her out have anything to do with this? It does, and I'll tell you why. If you notice who's coming out of the woodwork, what's happening right now is basically Ray Rice and his wife are ruined. He'll probably never play another down in the NFL. She pressed no charges against him. He went right to the commissioner after he did it, told the commissioner about it. Now all this firestorm is brewing. He's probably not only not going to play another down in the NFL, he's got a guaranteed contract. I guarantee you they're going to find a way to take that money from him.
And his wife is the one that's coming out and saying, "You've ruined our lives.
You've ruined our lives.
The NFL's ruined our lives."
Yes, that you don't know what happened that night. You don't know, and there's those that say that in fact it might be on tape that she spit on him, she kicked him, and so forth before. No, I'm not exonerating Ray Rice. That's not my point. Here's my point. Who's coming out of the woodwork right now? National Organization of Women. Do you think National Organization of Women cares one lick about Ray Rice's wife? No. You know what they care about? They care about knocking down a male bastion of what more emotes testosterone and maleness than the National Football League? It's a male not an enterprise. It's a male institution that they want to knock that they want to knock down. They want to it's their way of emasculating.
And you want more proof of it? I just thought of something. I'd completely forgotten about. It just now came to me. Last year, elevator, Jay-Z, Beyonce and her sister. Jay-Z knocked the snot out of her for some reason. Anyone come out about that much on the left? No. Because you know what? They like Jay-Z. But as it turned out, the sister actually, they didn't have the whole tape. Came out that she instigated and started tearing into him to start with.
This is about the NFL. This is about the emasculation, the wussification, the feminization of the NFL. Now you're seeing all these male sports talking heads sitting there tripping over each other to see who is going to be the most emasculated, sitting there talking about,
What's Keith Olbermann said about it?
I haven't heard. I don't try not to listen to him.
I do too.
But what's his name? James Brown from ESPN. I put a little thing on Facebook.
What about Stephen A. Smith?
Stephen A. Smith is he's pretty good about it, in my opinion. But anyway, James Brown
on CBS.
No, ESPN. James Brown, where is it CBS? You might be right.
No. He's on. He used to be on Fox.
Is he on CBS now? Then I made a mistake. I put ESPN. Well, anyway, He came out and basically said that, and this was an allusion to people making fun of Barack Obama throwing like a girl. And he said that we shouldn't be calling boys sissies and wussies because they throw like girls because
it's CBS.
Because it's demeaning to women. No, what's demeaning to women is comparing Obama's throw to theirs. Now, that's demeaning to women. I've heard a lot of women come out of the woodwork and say, hey, comparing Obama to throwing like a girl is demeaning to us because we throw much better than him.
Yeah. But, I mean, it's all about selective outrage because, like I said, no one came out about Jay-Z beating up Beyonce's sister.
No.
And Kevin makes a good point. What is the explanation? Can you think of any other explanation?
Okay, here's another example. What about the Boy Scouts?
Oh, God.
What have they been? Why has the left been on this tirade about the Boy Scouts? Because it's a male institution. They want to destroy it. Maleness. Why do you think they drug little boys with Ritalin at a very young age? They want to do that to my 4-year-old son. I pulled him out of public school so fast your eyes would spin. Because they want to knock the boy out of him. They want to knock the maleness out of him. They want to emasculate him. They want to make him invisible.
Look at the rule
so
changes.
the state can take power. They can't. It's hard for them to take power when you have strong men.
Look at the rule changes in sports. I mean, look at baseball. What they did.
Well, look. Okay, let's take this. What has football become now? It's either become about guns, about some athlete being caught with a gun, about some athlete being gay. They had a press conference for Sam the other day in Dallas because he was going to be playing on their practice squad. Whoever has a press conference because he's made a practice squad. The reason why it was news to the big emasculated sports media was because he was gay.
But by the same token, they had a story that I saw this morning about another football player for the Bengals who was cut but made the practice squad. Now, he'd make over the course of the season, if he was there for every week, he would make $6,500 a shot over the course of the season, right around $100,000. He's got a daughter that needs a lot of medical care. So you know what they did? They put him on the 52-man roster. Or is it 53? 52, right?
52.
52-man roster, so he'd make that minimum of $400,000 because they knew he needed it and they had a spot and they put him in on there right away. That's an instance of the NFL doing good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we need more stories like that. I forgot the guy's name. I just saw it this morning.
But this is what I ask you folks out there. Start paying attention to what's really at the root. I mean, really, this Ray Rice thing. Come on, hasn't a little light bulb been going off in your head going, why are they making such a big deal out of this? Now, we all agree that you don't knock your wife out. Nobody does.
It's Devon Still is his name.
But why? Why the firestorm? What's the reason? And that's the reason. It's the institutions that they're seeking to destroy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, his
daughter's got cancer is what it is. And they re-signed him.
Okay, here's another tidbit about how communists work. Okay, always bear in mind that communists do everything in the dark. Everything is not done in the light of day. When you shine a light on them, like cockroaches, they scatter. Everything is obfuscation, deceit, lies, and in the darkness.
It's like communism. Ideas so good they have to be done in the dark.
Or, yeah, like Wilkow says, communism's ideas so good they have to be made mandatory.
Yep.
All right, this is called, okay, in 2012, I don't know if any of you remember this, Obama came out with a slogan. It was called Forward.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. To the uninitiated, forward sounds, forward. Yeah, that makes sense. Let's go forward. However, that wasn't new at all. Many communist and radical publications and entities throughout the 19th and 20th centuries had the name Forward or its foreign cognates. Wikipedia has an entire section called Forward, generic names of socialist publications. The name Forward carries a special meaning in socialist political terminology. It has been frequently used as a name for socialist, communist, and other left-wing newspapers and publications, the online encyclopedia explains. The slogan Forward reflected the conviction of European Marxists and radicals that their movements reflected the march of history, which would move forward past capitalism and into socialism and communism. The Obama campaign released its new campaign slogan Monday in a 7-minute video. This was done years ago. This is an old article, but it's relevant. The title card has simply the word forward with the O having the familiar Obama logo from 2008. It will be played at rallies this weekend that mark the Obama re-election campaign. Okay, again, this was written in 2012. There have been at least 2 radical left publications named Vorwärts, the German word for forward. One was a daily newspaper of the Social Democratic Party of Germany, whose writers included Friedrich Engels and Leon Trotsky. It still publishes as the organ of Germany's Socialist Democratic Party, though that party has changed considerably since World War II. Another was the 1844 biweekly reader of the Communist League. Karl Marx, Engels, and Mikhail Bakunin are among the names associated with that publication. Vladimir Lenin founded the publication Period, which the word means forward, in 1905. Soviet propaganda filmmaker Dziga Vertov made a documentary whose title is sometimes translated as Forward, though also and more literally as Stride, Soviet. Conservative critics of the Obama administration have noted numerous ties to radicalism and socialists throughout Mr. Obama's history, from his first political campaign being launched from the living room of two former Weather Underground members to appointing his green job czar Van Jones, a self-described communist. Now, another biggie that they left out was, what did they call the Chinese Communist Revolution, Scott? It was called the It was called the Great Revolution. Leap Forward.
Oh, okay.
There it goes again. Forward. Now, this is all sort of old stuff, but it leads me to something that came out this week from one of my favorites, Facebook founder Mark Zuckerberg.
Uh-oh.
Mark Zuckerberg and other Silicon Valley leaders formally launched a political group aimed at revamping immigration policy, boosting education, encouraging investment on scientific research. Zuckerberg announced the formation of, drumroll please, Forward.us, or pronounced Forward Us. Mm-hmm. In an op-ed article in the Washington Post late Wednesday night, in it he said the U.S. needs a new approach to these issues of immigration, blah, 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 blah. He says, we have a strange immigration policy for a nation of immigrants, Zuckerberg wrote, and it's a policy unfit for today's world. What, Mr. Zuckerberg, that we actually ask people to go through the normal process of becoming an American citizen? That's application, interview, background check to make sure you don't have communicable diseases, normal things that sane societies require that, from people that want to become their citizens. Zuckerberg, whose great-grandparents were immigrants, said he wants comprehensive immigration reform that begins with effective border security, allows a path to citizenship, and lets us attract the most talented and hardest-working people no matter where they are born. Unfortunately, Mr. Zuckerberg, what's coming across the border are very unskilled people. I can't even call them laborers. I think that what they're going to be are drags on our system, our social welfare system.
Well, they already are, the ones that are here, to a large extent.
And guess who's coming out in support of this, Zuckerberg's new Forward.us? Microsoft and Google, ex-New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg. Oh, who else? LinkedIn corporate CEO Reid Hoffman, venture capitalist John Doerr, Jim Breyer, as well as Ruchi Sanghvi of Dropbox, who was Facebook Inc.'s first female engineer. And get this one. Joe Green, founder of Causes.com, a social network for community organizing, serves as the group's president and founder. Major financial contributors include Google, Netflix, Yahoo, Tesla Motors, CEO Mark Pincus, and former Groupon Inc. CEO Andrew Mason. Forward.us declined to disclose how much money Zuckerberg and other supporters have contributed to this group. Now, let's make something very clear. What this is about. This isn't about highly skilled workers. This is about low skilled workers. This is about cheap labor for mega wealthy people.
I like saying cheap lettuce.
Why are you seeing Apple computers being made in China where they have suicide nets left outside
factories?
Where they sleep, the dormitories. They have suicide nets because people are worked to death. What are they making? 80 cents an hour? I don't, if that. So you can have your cheap little Apple iPhones and your computers and so forth. That's what it's all about. And that's what they're going to make the United States. That's why we have this ongoing flood of low-level, unskilled, illiterate workers.
And this whole thing where they say, we do the jobs that you guys won't do.
That infuriates me.
That is not the reason why these corporations, it's because they want to be able to make as much money as they can. The only way they can do is to bring the prices down by having cheap labor. That's the only reason why, because they know Americans won't.
Here's the problem.
Americans will do the job. They won't do it for what the immigrants are doing it for.
Here's the problem, Scott. When you eliminate the middle class, which they're doing a good job of, who's going to buy your products?
They don't think that far ahead. They don't.
And Zuckerberg is worth now $20 billion himself, and his company, Facebook, is worth $200 billion. What exactly does Facebook make?
Nothing.
Nothing. And we're all chumps.
Oh, wait.
Me one of them.
Wait, they do make something. They make people feel warm and fuzzy is what they do.
So what you're going to wake up one day, people, and find is you're going to have a very, very small elite, and that's going to be the wealthy elite and the political elite and the rest of us.
As of July of this year, Zuckerberg is worth $33.1 billion.
And this 29-year-old punk
He just turned 30 in May.
Is lecturing the rest of us about immigration. The hell does he know about immigration? He met with Carlos Slim the other day.
I heard about that. Yeah.
Carlos Slim, the richest man in Mexico, was almost rich. Wasn't he for a while richer than Gates?
Yeah. As a matter of fact, there's no surprise why he has the attitude he has. You know where he's from? He was born in White Plains, New York.
He went to Ivy League schools. That's where they pollute their brains.
Ardsley High School, Phillips Exeter Academy. I don't see his...
These Ivy Leaguers, these elitist children are raised and then taught in school that they are better than the rest of us, that they are the movers and shakers of the world, and that their job in this world is to lead us poor dummies around and show us how to live.
Sounds like Fabian socialism to me.
It's exactly what it is. Well, I read you that article the other day. I think was it Bertrand Russell or H.G. Wells? I forget who it was. They basically said that the elite's job is that. It is exactly that, is to be elite. And in order for you to be elite, you got to have the dumb minions.
I think,
and the problem is a lot of people don't mind being led around and being minions. But there's people like two people you're listening to right now, Scott and myself, who won't do that. And we're the expendable people in this world. We in a communist society, we're the ones that are taken out and shot first.
I believe we're going to have to do this in multiple parts.
Yeah.
You? I would like to end. We've only got less than 10 minutes, but I would like to end. I've got in front of me here the 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto.
We're already there.
I want to read this, folks. You tell me if you don't think it can happen here. Read what Karl Marx wrote in 1848 by Karl Heinrich Marx. The 10 planks of the Communist Manifesto. Number 1. Abolition of private property in land and application of all rents of land to public purpose. We won't discuss these. We can do that sometime in the next week or two. Number 2, a heavy progressive or graduated income tax. Number 3, abolition of all rights of inheritance. Number 4, confiscation of the property of all immigrants and rebels. Number 5, centralization of credit in the hands of the state by means of a national bank with state capital and an exclusive monopoly.
Can you say the Federal Reserve?
Exactly. Number 6, centralization of the means of communication and transportation in the hands of the state.
Can you say the FCC?
Yep. Number 7, extension of factories and instruments of production owned by the state, the bringing into cultivation of wastelands and the improvement of the soil generally in accordance with a common plan. Can you say sustainability? Number 8, equal obligation of all to work, establishment of industrial armies, especially for agriculture. Number 9, combination of agriculture with manufacturing industries, gradual abolition of the distinction between town and country by a more equitable distribution of the population over the country.
Can you say Agenda 21?
Yep. Number 10, the last one, free education for all children in government schools, abolition of children's factory labor in its present form, combination of education with industrial production, etc., etc.
That happened decades ago.
Yep. So if we haven't achieved some of these planks of the Communist Manifesto, we're on our way to achieving them all.
Well, they're already, I don't know if you've followed this, but they already have guidelines on small family farms about how many hours a day a child can work on a family farm. Basically, the jobs that we did as children are no longer available to children anymore. The children are not learning work ethic at an early age, and that's by design.
Heck, you can't even get a paper out as a kid anymore.
You have to
haven't been for years.
You are going to be a ward of the state. You are you're going to have every capitalistic bone, every entrepreneurial bone in your body whipped right out of you. I mean, kids being harassed having lemonade stands. You think that is just some bureaucrat gone crazy?
What's happening?
No, they want They don't want anybody. They want to start at an early age and knock the entrepreneurial spirit out of our children. They want plain and simple. Another creepy thing about communism, Scott, you and I were talking about this before we went on the air. Don't you find it creepy that you're hearing this more and more? Instead of referring to our country, they're calling it the homeland.
Oh, back in 2001 when George W. Bush created the Office of the Department of Homeland Security, chills went down my spine when I heard that. But you're hearing
it now on the news constantly. What did Russia call their country? It was called the motherland. What did the Nazis call their country? They called it the fatherland. We're calling it the homeland. That's
and
creepy.
A true sign of what's the word I'm looking for? Of a nationalist is the overusage of epithets. In other words, words that are meant to represent something else.
Well, yeah. Well, that's Orwellian.
You call a girl a chick.
Well, in the old Eastern Bloc, East Germany, everything was either the people's this or the democratic this, and neither one of them were true.
Right, and it's the sign of a true patriot. And then they all try to say that they're patriots. True patriot will rely on and talk about the institutions and traditions that made their country great. They won't speak of in vague terms. Everything the communists do is insidious and evil, and in my opinion, comes from the dark side. No doubt about it. It is. It comes. I'm sorry. I'm not sorry, but if you don't like this, it comes from the devil. It comes from hell. It is hell on earth. Mm-hmm. The only thing communists did very well in the last 100 years is murder. Yep. They did it at a prolific rate, and they did it very well. Heck, the Chinese now, they've got actual vehicles that they execute people in now. What? Vehicles? Yes, that will actually travel. It's like, remember the bookmobiles that we had here in the 70s? Yeah. Because Phoenix was growing at such a fast rate, they couldn't build libraries fast enough, so they would have big old motorhomes that they would fill with books and go from, neighborhood to neighborhood. Well, they do the same thing in China for their court system. So they, if someone is tried in court and they're found guilty and they need to execute them, they have execution vans that actually come and do the job for them. I'm looking here. That makes you feel good, doesn't it? Yeah. That's good old communism. I'm looking here. There's actually an entry in Wikipedia for mass killings under communist regimes. It says the estimates of the number of people killed of non-combatants killed under the Soviet Union under Joseph Stalin, People's Republic of China under Mao Zedong, and Cambodia under the Khmer Rouge ranges anywhere from 21 million to a high of 70 million. Oh, it's higher than that. Just in China alone. It has to be. Just in China alone, it was more than that. But it says here, mass killings occurred under some communist regimes during the 20th century with an estimated death toll numbering between 85 and 100 million. Okay, there we go, 85 and 100 million. Well, that's just, the one I mentioned was just those three regimes. Okay. You're not talking about Cuba. You're not talking about any in Africa. And real quick, we're seeing, speaking of Cuba, we're seeing ISIS has this sort of sexy image going on, sort of reminiscent of Che Guevara, who was a mass murdering communist himself. You see these college kids walking around with Che Guevara shirts on. He was Castro's main executioner and his doctor, by the way. His main executioner, and he was thankfully killed in the jungles of Bolivia while trying to start insurrection down there. But they try to romanticize these murderers and these killers. But I had one more thing to say before we close down. There's so much I can go on about these people. It's darkness. It's just evil. It's just again, a good way to cull the population is to instill communism. And I dare say we have a template for next week's show. Yeah. We're not done. I mean, there's more. And this isn't, I have a friend who on Facebook says, communism, that's old stuff. No, it's not. It's in your face. They're just not calling it that. They call it social justice. I can remember back in, 89 when the Berlin Wall fell and the Soviet Union dissolved? something like that, 89, 90, something like that. I remember talking to a friend of mine, and he was saying, he says, the Ruskies are our friends now. And I said, don't you believe that for a minute? And this is almost 25 years ago, as I was saying, I said, they're just taking a break right now.
Well, let me tell you something real quick, and another real life example that I have. Again, I was a Russian, electronic warfare spy in the military. I intercepted Soviet military maneuvers, and I was stationed in the Fulda Gap, which was on the border, and every other week there was families killed trying to escape from the east to the west, machine gunned down. Sometimes their bodies laying in barbed wire for days before they would take them down. So I got out of there. I got off the eastern border in 1987, and I came home and I finished up my college at Arizona State University. And I'll never forget this one history class I took, and it was your typical liberal leftist who was sitting there talking about how beautifully communism was working in Czechoslovakia. And he would just go on and extol the virtues of communism. And one day after class, I walked up to him and I said, Mr. So-and-so, I forgot his name, it doesn't really matter. I said, what you're doing to these students is a total disservice and a big lie. Life in Czechoslovakia is hell. And you're going to see these people within the next few years revolt. And they did. It started in it culminated, with the wall coming down, but it started in Romania. They executed the Ceausescus. Mm-hmm. But anyway, I don't want to go on another tangent, but the bottom line was these leftists never quit, and if they didn't lie, they would have nothing to say.
Because each of them thinks they can do better than the one that preceded them,
and the ends justify the means. They don't. It's like Islam. They don't. They think nothing of lying to the infidel. In fact, it's encouraged. Same thing with Russians. Lie. It doesn't matter if you lie, as long as the end result is this totalitarian paradise on earth. It's actually it's not a utopia. It's a dystopia.
All right. Well. Anyway, like I said, we're going to continue this next week, folks. Just to give you some heads up, I'm working on some ideas that'll give you more options with which to listen to the show. And during the times we're not either broadcasting live or replaying the broadcast on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays at 9 o'clock Eastern, 6 Pacific, tune into the radio station anyway. PhoenixUndergroundRadio.com. Listen to some of the cool music. You won't be sorry, because there's going to be music up there that you haven't heard for years, stuff you haven't never heard, all kinds of stuff. But like I said, you can catch us 4 times each week. Anyway, we'll see you next week.
And pay attention. Don't just look what's being fed to you. Pay attention to it.
And if you don't believe us, look it up yourself. That's all I say. Don't take our word for it. Look it up. All right. See you guys next week.
God bless.